Simple Ways was by far in my top 3 for season 4, and it's definitely made its way into my top 10 of the show so far. It was nice to see the writers using the whole of the main 6 in this episode, but only briefly. It didn't seem rushed or they were hanging around for too long, like in Rainbow Falls, which I may cover another time. I may have been a little biased towards this episode because it was clearly a rarity episode. Okay, it was a Rarity and Applejack episode, and I must admit I didn't mind Applejack here. In fact, this season has weirdly made me appreciate Applejack on a different level. To say I like her, she's still my least favourite of the main 6, but she seems to have a bit more depth to her, or at least that's my adaptation of her this season. A lot of people have been talking about the fact that they shouldn't be involving love into My Little Pony as it's for little girls. However, I disagree. They didn't push it, and it was quite subtle as the way they portrayed the feelings. I like to think of it the same way as Naruto and Yu-Gi-Oh! Johnson when I was younger. I grew up with these two shows along with Generation 2 My Little Pony, but that's completely different and I'll talk about another day. What these shows do is they have a target audience and a demographic for the beginning of the show and the pilot. However, as the show continues, the children watching that show grow up with it. Now, they adapt the show through seasons to the age group that them children are at that point in time. And I believe this is what My Little Pony's doing, as them children who started watching it maybe at 8 or 9, maybe are 12 or 13 at the moment, and at that age girls are getting into boys and having feelings that are to do with love and crushes and things like that. I think this is great. They are maturing the show with the audience, and I honestly think that's a really good move. Act 1 focused on Rarity more than the pair, as it was getting the plot going, and unlike the other episodes, the pace seemed to be steady and not rushing over any details. This episode is everything I love about Rarity. She puts 110% into everything she does, even if it doesn't turn out to be right. She doesn't do anything half-heartedly if she can help it. I also adore her fangirl and freak-out sessions during this episode, which I must admit was so adorable. Along with the blushing, I was just set for life. We met Trenderhoof in this episode, and honestly, my first impression of him is that he was the definition of what society thinks a hipster is. Now, I know that was the point, and it still made me laugh. It honestly made me giggle a little bit. It seemed that Trenderhoof, rather than actually falling for Applejack, he fell for the land and how quaint it was and the old natural kind of farm. And he automatically associated the farm with Applejack, and that is why I believe he fell for Applejack rather than Rarity, because he fell in love with the land, therefore he connected that with Applejack. One of my favourite characters in this episode wasn't Trenderhoof, it wasn't even Rarity, but it was Spike. He only had a few moments in the spotlight, but my god, did he make every second count. His fourth wall break was priceless, along with him acting mature. I'm not kidding, I think he's grown a little, or maybe he doesn't see Trenderhoof as a threat. That would make a lot of sense, but I also believe that after all these episodes that he's had, that I believe he's actually matured a little bit. The height of this episode is Rarity trying to do some ploughing. It becomes clear that she really has and had no interest in farming, but rather she wanted to do it to impress Trenderhoof. However, this was nothing compared to her snap moment afterwards when she went full country. Now, I thought Rarity did this flawlessly. It was almost like she had been suppressing this part of her for years. It would make sense considering her parents. The same goes for Applejack. She took the elegance with no trouble, as if her time in Manhattan when she was a filly never left her really. And honestly, I think the pair do this perfectly. The switch roles was perfect. The only issue I had with this episode was the battle between them two. It seemed forced. They seemed to only point out the stereotypical traits of the other one's life, and that rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. Other than that, this episode was fairly enjoyable. I really loved it, and it's definitely in my top 3 for this season. The moral for me was really relatable, and considering the rest of the season it really fitted. I think that it could really relate to a lot of people who watch the show, and how you shouldn't act differently than you are just to impress someone. And I think a lot of people, nearly everyone, probably relates to this, and I really do like this moral. I definitely give this episode a 9 out of 10. I really enjoy it. Even there was a little few things that really bugged me. It was probably just me nitpicking, but yeah, I really love this episode. So let's make